The Love Prescription. 7 Days to More Intimacy, Connection, and Joy. Written by Gottman and Julie Gottman. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Chapter 1. Day 1. Make contact from the Love Prescription in a long-form immersive passage format. Just as if you're listening to a deeply engaging one-on-one conversation. It all starts so small you almost miss it. A glance across the room, a quiet sigh after a long day, a hand that lingers for half a second longer. These are the moments most people pass by, not because they don't care, but because they're moving too fast to notice. And yet, according to decades of research by Drs. John and Julie Gottman, this barely there moment of reaching is where love either grows or begins to fade. You might think love begins with grand gestures, anniversary trips, candlelit dinners, tearful confessions. But no, the real engine of love runs on something much quieter, something the Gottmans call a bid for connection. And this is where day 1 begins. A bid can be anything. A comment about the weather, a touch on the arm, a shared laugh at something on TV. It's one partner's attempt to connect, however subtly. And the way the other partner responds, that's the magic, or the mischance. When your partner says, "Wow, look at that sky," you have a choice. You can turn toward them and say, "It's beautiful." Or you can turn away, absorbed in your phone, in your to-do list, in your own thoughts. You might not even realize you've turned away, but your partner will feel it. And they'll start to wonder, do I matter? This is how love fades, not in explosions but in small silent dismissals. The Gottmans discovered this in their famous Love Lab, a warm, apartment-like research setting where they observed couples living their normal lives, reading, cooking, talking. The researchers were looking for these everyday moments. One couple might laugh together over breakfast. Another might stay silent, eyes glued to separate screens. The results were stunning. Couples who stayed together responded to each other's bids, those little attempts to connect, an average of 86% of the time. Couples who eventually divorced? Just 33%. That's the power of a look, a sentence, a touch. And so, day 1 of your love prescription is simple but profound: make contact. But how do you know when your partner is making a bid? And how can you train yourself to turn toward, even when life is busy and noisy? Starts with paying attention. Really, that's the whole practice. Instead of rushing past your partner's comment, pause. Hear it. Let your body soften toward them. Imagine every bid as a pebble thrown toward a bridge, and your response is what keeps that bridge standing. Here's a gentle way to begin. Just try to catch 3 bids from your partner today and respond. They might say, "Want to grab lunch?" Or "I had a weird dream," or even just sigh. Don't overthink it. The key is to be there. Look up. Nod. Say something that acknowledges them. These moments are the building blocks of trust, safety, and emotional closeness. Imagine you're planting seeds. You don't see fruit on day 1, but what you're doing is building soil. Rich, attentive, connected soil for the love you want to grow. And yes, you'll miss some bids. We all do. We're human. We get tired, distracted, irritable. But when you do catch one, and you turn toward, you're saying something vital even if it's unspoken. You matter to me. I'm here with you. I see you. Let that be your new ritual. Look for bids. Respond with warmth. Make a bid of your own. Reach out with a sentence, a hand, a smile. Doesn't have to be fancy. Just has to be real. Because love doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. So, here's your gentle assignment for today. Notice 3 moments when your partner reaches out. Verbally, physically, emotionally. Respond in some small, thoughtful way. Reflect afterward. How did it feel? Did something shift? This isn't about changing your whole relationship in one day. It's about building one brick of connection. One smile. One shared moment. And then doing it again tomorrow. Love doesn't vanish overnight. It slips through our fingers one missed moment at a time. But the good news? We can bring it back in the same way, moment by moment, contact by contact. So pause today. Look, listen, reach, respond. Because everything that matters in love starts right here. Chapter 2. Day 2. Ask a big question presented entirely in long-form passage format. Just like an immersive one-on-one audio experience. There's something electric about being asked the right question. It's like someone suddenly switches on a light inside you, illuminating corners of your inner world that maybe even you hadn't looked at in a while. That's what this chapter is about. Not reading minds, not decoding signals, but simply asking, what's going on in there? And being willing to listen. So here we are, day 2. Yesterday we practiced making contact, those small, frequent gestures that reconnect us to each other, like reaching across a chasm with a smile or a gentle touch. Today we go deeper, because once we've made contact, the natural next question is, what's behind those eyes I just met? Ask a big question. Now, this isn't about prying or digging up emotional landmines. It's about showing interest, curiosity, care. When was the last time you asked your partner something that surprised them? Not about logistics or chores or plans, but something that said, I want to know what it's like to be you today. One of the most powerful discoveries the Gottmans made in their decades of relationship research is that thriving couples regularly update what they call their love maps. Think of a love map like the GPS of your partner's inner world. It includes their joys, their fears, their favorite memories, the people who've shaped them, the things that stress them out, and the dreams they quietly hold. But here's the trick. Love maps aren't static. People change. We all do. And so your map has to be updated again and again, or else you're navigating the present with an outdated blueprint. And how do you update the map? You ask. Not just any question, but ones that open doors, that signal a desire to know more than what's on the surface. You might ask, what are you looking forward to lately? Or what's been hard for you this month? Or even, what's something you've wanted to talk about but haven't known how? And the point isn't to solve anything. It's not about fixing your partner or steering the conversation to your own agenda. It's simply to create space for them to unfold. To say, I'm here. I'm listening. I still want to know who you are. Because here's the truth, people change. Even the ones we sleep beside every night. Especially them. Their priorities shift. Their stresses evolve. Their dreams grow quieter or louder depending on the season they're in. And if we're not asking questions, we might start assuming we already know. And that's when emotional intimacy begins to slip. It's deceptively easy to fall into a relationship rhythm that keeps everything on the surface. Work, bills, groceries, who's picking up the kids. These aren't bad conversations, they're necessary. But if they become the only conversations, then slowly, without even noticing, you begin to lose sight of each other. So today's prescription is simple. Ask one big question. It doesn't have to be heavy or profound, but it should be real, honest, intentional. And when your partner answers, really listen. Let them talk. Let the silence stretch if it needs to. Nod. Reflect back. That makes sense. I didn't know you felt that way. Thank you for telling me. You don't need to comment on everything they say. You don't even need to agree. Just create space for them to share who they are now, not just who they were when you first fell in love. And if you feel brave, answer the question yourself. Offer a part of your own world, too. Intimacy grows best in mutual vulnerability. One question asked, one truth shared. What's something you've been craving more of in your life lately? What's something that's been weighing on your heart? What's a dream you've quietly been nursing? The Gottmans remind us, when we ask meaningful questions, we aren't just being good partners. We're helping each other become more fully known. And that is one of the deepest human needs. To be seen. To be understood. To feel like someone is still curious about who we are becoming. So here's your invitation today. Ask one real question. Listen with your whole body. And allow yourself to be surprised by what you learn. Because knowing your partner isn't a one-time task. It's a lifelong unfolding. And asking a big question is how we say again and again, I still choose to know you. Chapter 3. Day 3. Say thank you from the Love Prescription. Fully written in long-form passage form. As if you're listening to a calm, insightful conversation with someone who understands the quiet rhythms of real love. There's something deeply human about wanting to feel seen. Not just in our biggest moments, but in the smallest ones too. The cup you refill without being asked. The trash you take out before anyone notices. The choice to hold your tongue when irritation simmers. These things rarely make headlines in a relationship, but they are, in many ways, the quiet choreography of love. And yet, how often do these acts go unseen? How often do they slip past unnoticed, folded into the rhythm of daily life, while resentment quietly grows in the silence? That's why day 3 of the Love Prescription is so powerful in its simplicity. Say thank you. Now before you brush this off with a "sure, I say thanks all the time," pause. Because this isn't just about courtesy, it's about recognition. It's about looking at your partner's everyday efforts and saying with sincerity, "I see you. What you did mattered to me." The Gottmans, with their meticulous research into how couples thrive, found something incredibly simple yet remarkably consistent. Successful couples express appreciation often, and they do it deliberately. Not just for the big things like planning a vacation or landing a promotion, but for the daily contributions that keep their shared life humming. In fact, in relationships that last, positive interactions like thank you and compliments outnumber negative ones by a ratio of at least 5-to-1. Think about that. For every moment of criticism or complaint, 5 positive interactions. And gratitude? That's one of the most impactful of all. So why don't we say thank you more often? Maybe we assume our partner knows we appreciate them. Maybe we're waiting for them to notice us first. Or maybe we've stopped noticing altogether. We've grown so used to what they do that it blends into the background. But when appreciation disappears, something dangerous creeps in. Entitlement. The sense that this is just how things are supposed to be. And once entitlement takes root, love begins to feel more like obligation. The spark dims. The silence thickens. And both people start to feel alone. But appreciation is like oxygen. The moment you reintroduce it, something softens. The air gets clearer. So today's invitation is simple but deep. Look for something your partner did right, and thank them for it. Not just with a quick thanks, but with intention. Make it specific. Name what they did and how it made your life easier, brighter, more manageable. Say it like you mean it. Because it's easy to underestimate how much even a few words of appreciation can mean, especially when someone feels unseen. Instead of "thanks for dinner," try, "Thank you for cooking tonight. I know you had a long day, and it meant a lot to come home to that." Instead of "Thanks for driving," maybe, "I appreciate you taking the wheel tonight. It gave me a chance to relax, and I really needed that." This practice isn't about flattery. It's not about sugarcoating or faking it. It's about presence. It's about noticing and saying out loud what we so often keep inside. And something beautiful happens when you begin to practice gratitude like this. You start noticing more. You begin scanning your relationship for what's working, for what's good. And the more you look, the more you find. The Gottmans call this building a culture of appreciation. It's the opposite of criticism. It's a shift in the emotional climate of your relationship, from tension and assumption to warmth and trust. And here's something else. This practice isn't just good for your partner, it's good for you. Studies show that people who regularly express gratitude feel more optimistic, sleep better, and even have stronger immune systems. Why? Because when you say thank you, you're training your brain to focus on abundance instead of lack. So if your relationship has felt a little strained, a little off track, a little stuck in the day-to-day grind, gratitude is the way back. Not flashy, not loud, but steady. Just one thank you at a time. Here's how you can begin today. Notice one small thing your partner did, something that may have gone unacknowledged. Say thank you out loud, clearly from the heart. Make it specific what they did and why it mattered. Keep your tone warm, not transactional but appreciative. And then watch what happens. Maybe not instantly, maybe not dramatically, but slowly, quietly something begins to shift. Walls soften, smiles return, eyes meet a little more often. Because sometimes the most radical act of love isn't grand or poetic. It's simply paying attention and saying, "I see you, and I'm grateful." Chapter 4. Day 4. Give a real compliment from the Love Prescription, presented entirely in immersive long-form passage form, as though you're hearing it gently spoken by someone who knows how love works in the everyday. Somewhere along the way we stop saying what we feel, not because we don't feel it, but because we assume they already know. We fall into rhythm, routine. The warmth turns into habit, and the habit turns into silence. But if we pause, if we slow down for even a breath, we remember. We remember how much we once admired them, how much still lives beneath the surface. And that's what day 4 of this love prescription is calling us to do. Give a real compliment. Sounds simple, maybe even too simple. But that's where the beauty lies, not in the grand gesture, but in the small, honest naming of something good, something true. Think about the last time someone complimented you, not on your looks or your outfit, but on who you are. Something real. Something that hit you somewhere deep. Maybe they said, "You're the calm in every storm," or "You make people feel safe," or "You always find a way through." And maybe, just maybe, you carried that compliment with you for days or years or still. That's the kind of compliment we're talking about. Not surface level, not obligatory, but soul to soul. I see this in you, and I admire it. Because here's what we know, and what the Gottmans prove with decades of research: relationships don't survive on logistics. They thrive on appreciation, noticing, naming the good, out loud, on purpose. But over time, many couples fall into what we might call a praise drought. Not because they don't love each other, but because they stop speaking their love. They assume, "He knows I'm proud of him. She knows I think she's beautiful. They know I'm grateful." But knowing isn't the same as hearing. Love, when unspoken, slowly withers. Admiration, when left unsaid, loses its power. So today, you're invited to practice seeing again. To look at your partner through the lens of appreciation, and say one thing you truly admire. Maybe it's their sense of humor, their compassion, their integrity. Maybe it's the way they make people feel welcome, or the calm they bring into a chaotic room. Maybe it's how they keep showing up, even when they're tired, or how they always seem to know when you need a hand or a moment of space. And here's the key: be specific. The compliment doesn't need to be long, but it should be real. Not "You're amazing," but "I love how you stayed so patient with your mom on the phone. That couldn't have been easy." Not "You're smart," but "I'm always impressed by how clearly you think when we're trying to solve a problem." That level of detail tells your partner, "I'm really seeing you. Not just living next to you, but paying attention to who you are." And when people feel seen, they soften. They open. They respond in kind. Compliments create what the Gottmans call a culture of appreciation. A relationship environment where love isn't just felt, it's named and noticed often. Think of it like watering a plant. Even the hardiest, most deeply rooted ones need regular nourishment. So does your relationship. And compliments, real ones, are water. They don't just maintain the bond, they help it bloom. Now, if complimenting doesn't come naturally to you, that's okay. You're not trying to become poetic. You're just practicing honesty. And if it feels a little awkward at first, that's perfectly normal. You're rewiring a pattern. You're choosing vulnerability over assumption. So today, look at your partner like it's the first time again. Not through the blur of routine, but with the fresh eyes of admiration. And then say one thing, just one, that you love, admire, or respect about them. And say it like you mean it. Because if you're going to speak truth into your relationship, let it be this: "I still see what's beautiful in you, and I'm grateful for it." Compliments might not solve your arguments. They won't pay your bills or fold the laundry, but they create an emotional buffer. A warm space where love can stretch, rest, and root itself again. So give a compliment today. Let it be quiet or bold, whispered or written, simple or profound. Just let it be real. And then watch what happens when love is spoken out loud again. Chapter 5. Day 5. Ask for What You Need from the Love Prescription by John and Julie Gottman. Now shaped into a single, uninterrupted, immersive passage, as if you're listening to someone who truly understands what love asks of us, and what it offers in return. We grow up thinking that love means never having to ask, that the right person will just know what we need, how we feel when we're struggling, when we're craving closeness. And so we wait. We sigh and drop hints and hope to be seen. But more often than not, the hope is met with silence. Not because our partner doesn't care, but because they can't read minds. And the truth is, neither can we. That's why today's practice feels so radical. Even though it's one of the simplest truths in a relationship, you have to ask for what you need. Sounds easy, but if you've ever bitten your tongue, stuffed your longing down, or told yourself, "It's not that important," you know just how hard it can be to speak up. There's vulnerability in saying, "I'm hurting." There's risk in admitting, "I need more from you." And for many of us, asking feels too close to weakness, or worse, rejection. But the Gottmans are clear. Couples who thrive don't rely on guesswork. They don't wait for things to boil over. They learn how to voice their needs, clearly, calmly, and often. They don't punish each other for not knowing. Instead, they create a space where asking is normal, where needs are not shameful but human. So let's start here. What do you need right now? Maybe it's something simple. A few extra minutes of eye contact, a little more patience, a word of encouragement. Or maybe it's something deeper, a sense of safety, the reassurance of being chosen, the comfort of knowing you matter. It might be about touch, or time, or truth. Whatever it is, the first step is to name it, to yourself first and then gently to your partner. Because if your partner doesn't know what you need, it's not necessarily because they're careless. It may be because you've never told them. Or because you told them once in passing and hoped they'd remember forever. Or because you've been so focused on their needs that you forgot your own. The Gottmans encourage us to let go of that old, damaging myth that needing something makes you needy, that asking makes you weak. In fact, the opposite is true. Asking for what you need is an act of emotional strength. It says, I care about this connection enough to be real with you. But how we ask matters. Tone is everything. Timing matters too. So start small if you need to. Use I language. Speak from your heart, not from blame. Not you never help me, but I've been feeling overwhelmed lately. I would really appreciate a hand with dinner tonight. Not you don't care about me, but I need to feel more connected. Could we carve out a few minutes to talk tonight? Just the two of us. When you ask like that, with honesty and softness, you open a door. You make connection easier, not harder. And something incredible often happens when you give your partner the opportunity to show up for you. They do. Not perfectly. Not every time. But often enough that trust begins to grow. Because when you ask for what you need, you're not demanding. You're inviting your partner to love you in a way that's actually helpful. You're offering a roadmap instead of asking them to wander in the dark. And yes, sometimes your needs may not be met exactly as you imagined. That's part of being in a relationship with another human being. But even then, just naming your need can be healing. It shifts the dynamic from silent suffering to shared awareness. Now, if you're someone who's been holding a lot in, who's gotten used to powering through or waiting to be noticed, this practice might feel unfamiliar, maybe even scary. That's okay. Growth always feels awkward at first. But the more you ask, the more natural it becomes. And over time, asking turns into a rhythm. A sign that your love is alive, dynamic, and honest. Think of it this way. Every unspoken need becomes a missed opportunity for connection. But every spoken need becomes a bridge. So today, take a breath. Ask yourself, what's one thing I truly need right now from my partner? Then when the time feels right, ask them. Kindly, clearly, without apology. Because love isn't built on silence. It's built on brave words spoken in safety. And when you begin to ask for what you need, you're not just advocating for yourself. You're giving your partner the chance to meet you where you are. You're creating the kind of bond where both people can be known and supported. So ask, even if your voice shakes, even if it's new, even if it feels too small or too big. Ask, because what you need matters. And being loved well begins with being willing to speak. Chapter 6. Day 6. Reach Out and Touch from the Love Prescription by John and Julie Gottman. Written as a single, uninterrupted, emotionally immersive passage. Warm, fluid, and heartfelt, as if you're being gently guided back into the quiet language of closeness. We underestimate touch. We think of it as something automatic in the early days, those first few weeks or months when we can't keep our hands off each other, when fingers intertwine without thought, when a brush of the arm sends sparks up the spine. And then life begins to stack itself up. Schedules, stress, responsibilities, dishes in the sink, tension in the air. And somehow little by little touch fades into the background. We still love each other, of course. But the connection becomes more logistical, less physical. Practical over personal. And the space between us grows. That's why day 6 matters. Reach out and touch, not for productivity, not for function, but for connection. For reassurance. For presence. Because long before we ever spoke a word, we knew touch. As babies, we didn't need language to feel safe, we needed arms. Skin. Warmth. That's how we learned love in its purest form. And even now, as adults in complicated relationships with layered histories, our nervous systems still respond to that same primal comfort. A hand in yours. A palm resting gently on your back. Fingers brushing your hair. It doesn't need to be grand. Just needs to be real. What the Gottmans show us in their research is simple and profound. Regular, affectionate, non-sexual touch is one of the strongest predictors of relationship satisfaction. It regulates our stress, releases oxytocin, softens tension, and creates safety. It's not just sweet, it's science. And yet so many couples stop touching not because they've fallen out of love, but because they've fallen out of rhythm. Maybe there was a fight that never got resolved. Maybe life got busy. Maybe kids climbed into the bed and stayed there for years. Maybe trauma made touch feel risky. Maybe you've been distant for so long you're not even sure how to break the silence anymore. But all of that can start to shift with one thing. A hand. This isn't about fixing everything in a single gesture. It's about signaling. I'm here. I still care. We're okay. Touch is a bit for connection, the kind that doesn't need words. It whispers what the mouth struggles to say. I remember how we feel together. I still want this closeness. So today your invitation is gentle and powerful. Reach out. If you're sitting next to each other, let your shoulders brush. If you're passing in the kitchen, rest your hand on their lower back. If you're walking side by side, try taking their hand not because you have to, but because you can. If your partner looks tired, place your hand on their knee, not to ask anything but simply to say, I see you. And if there's been distance, start small. Touch on the arm. A hand rested nearby. Not everyone finds touch easy, especially if there's unresolved pain or emotional baggage. But even in those situations, touch, when offered with respect and care, can be the most healing of bridges. You're not reaching to fix. You're reaching to feel, to reconnect. Touch done right says, you're not alone. It says, you still matter to me. And over time, a relationship built on that kind of physical kindness becomes not just functional, but safe, soothing, alive. It doesn't always need to lead to anything more. In fact, some of the most powerful touches are the ones that ask for nothing in return. They exist only to connect. And in that, they give everything. The Gottmans have observed this again and again. Couples who touch more, who hold hands, cuddle, hug, rub backs, kiss on the forehead, don't just stay together longer. They enjoy their relationship more. They have more resilience during conflict, more empathy during stress, more laughter, calmer. Because the body remembers. The body carries love, not just the mind. So today, let yourself return to that wordless language. Touch without needing to talk. Let your hand speak what your voice cannot. Let it say, I'm here. I'm with you. I still care. And then just stay there a moment longer than usual. Linger in the stillness. You don't have to say anything clever. You just have to stay close enough to be felt. Because sometimes the most powerful form of intimacy isn't verbal. It's physical. Not sexual. Not performative. Just simple, steady, grounding contact. One hand. 1 second. One heartbeat of closeness. Sometimes that's all it takes to say, we're still in this together. Chapter 7. Day 7. Make a Ritual from the Love Prescription by John and Julie Gottman. Now written as a single uninterrupted passage, gentle, grounded, and immersive, like listening to someone who quietly reminds you how to come home to your relationship, one intentional moment at a time. Every love story needs something steady, something that doesn't depend on mood or weather or circumstance, something that stays even when life gets messy. That's what rituals are. They're not dramatic or dazzling. They're not about spontaneity or grand gestures. They're the soft, consistent heartbeat of a relationship. The rhythm that says we come back to each other no matter what. That's the invitation in Day 7 of the Love Prescription. Make a ritual. Create something sacred and small. Something predictable and intentional. Something that belongs only to the two of you. Because without those anchoring moments, love can start to drift. Not out of malice, not out of neglect, but simply because the currents of life are strong. Jobs, deadlines, errands, dishes, fatigue. It all adds up. Before you know it, days go by without a real check-in. Weeks pass without a meaningful hug. Months roll along, and you're managing the house or raising kids or making plans, but not truly connecting. The Gottmans have spent decades studying couples who make it through the years not just intact, but still in love. One of the most consistent things they've found? Those couples have rituals. Tiny, meaningful routines they've agreed upon, sometimes without even realizing it, that allow them to say, I still see you. We still matter. It might be a 6-second kiss before heading out the door. It might be coffee on the porch every Sunday morning. It might be taking a walk after dinner or brushing teeth side by side before bed. It could be texting good morning, no matter how busy the day gets. It might be the way you always touch toes under the blankets before sleep. The beauty of a ritual is that it doesn't have to be exciting. In fact, the more ordinary, the better. Because it's not about performance. It's about presence. What these rituals do is build a safe container for connection. They create something you can count on, especially when things get hard. They give you a landing pad, a place to reconnect without needing to say much, a doorway back to closeness that's already familiar and safe. And when you commit to a ritual, what you're really doing is making love easier to access. You're taking something fragile, like a warm feeling or a passing spark, and grounding it in something practical. Something that can weather tired mornings, bad moods, and ordinary days. If you're not sure what your ritual should be, start by noticing. Is there something you already do that brings you closer? Could you do it more consistently? Could you mark it as ours? Or start fresh. Talk with your partner and create something together. Doesn't need to be perfect. Just needs to be yours. Maybe every Friday night becomes no phones and movie time. Maybe every morning begins with a shared 3-minute cuddle. No words needed. Maybe it's brushing your fingers through their hair while they rest. Maybe it's lighting a candle and sitting close, just once a week just to be near each other. The point isn't what you do. The point is that you do it and that you do it together. Because rituals over time become muscle memory for love. They help you stay connected not just when things are easy, but when they're hard. Especially when they're hard. You'll fight, sure. You'll get distracted, distant, overwhelmed. But when you've built something steady, you always know how to return. That's what this 7th practice teaches us. Love thrives not in the intensity of big moments, but in the consistency of small ones. Moments that say again and again, you matter to me. This matters. We matter. So today, create your first ritual. And protect it. Guard it like something sacred. Because it is. And let this be the start, not the end of your deeper connection. Let everything you've built over these 7 days begin to stack, layer by layer, like bricks in a foundation that can hold anything. Because real love is not sustained by chemistry. It's sustained by intention, by returning to each other on purpose, again and again. And that's what rituals do. They hold the quiet promise. No matter what happens around us, we come back to us.